Good morning. We are live from Mobile, Alabama. I know it doesn't quite look like it. I'm still in the doldrums of my hotel room as we get ready for the second day of practice at Senior Bowl, but I promise you, I am in Mobile. Right across the street over here is Hank Aaron Stadium where the Bay Bears play, and it's on Satchel Paige Avenue or Satchel Paige Drive. As a huge baseball guy, this is my kind of place. So I appreciate y'all coming in today. We're going to talk a little bit about the draft, the Senior Bowl, et cetera, and all these and some of the risers and fallers. But first, I want to say good morning to Nick. Nick, how are you, my friend? This is Nick Kendall at Nick Kendall MHH.
I'm doing pretty well. Very jealous, having some FOMO of everybody down there in the Senior Bowl, but excited that you're down there and we can talk a little bit about it, and looking forward to being extremely unproductive at work for these next few days as I sit there and just scroll and see what's going on with the players that I like and the players that I don't like as much, just because, as you like to say, I'm cheering for me. I want to be right. So I'm pulling for all these guys. Honestly, I'm not pulling for any of these guys to not succeed, but it's fun. And it's fun to ride the wave of the practices.
Yes, it is. And hopefully we'll get a bunch of people from different teams come in. I posted a quick video of Kenny Pickett throwing to Braylon Sanders. And the Ole Miss guys, I thought they'd be happy for Braylon. Instead, they're more just dogging Kenny for underthrowing him a little bit, saying Matt Corral would never. I'm like, folks, it's possible to like and appreciate one player without dogging on another. It is possible. Yeah. Remember I mentioned that the fight to stay off the bottom is the nastiest of the bunch, the Ole Miss and Mississippi State. That fight, that when you look at like socioeconomics and stuff, it's not the fights at the top that are the nastiest. It's the ones to not be last that end up being the nastiest. Ole Miss fans can be a little nasty in that regards because they haven't been, the top tier of the SEC for, a while. I think they have in the past, but it's been a while, and they get a little snippy sometimes. So I was disappointed in that. I was like, I'm just be happy for Braylon. Thank you.
Yeah.
So
I mean, want it all.
Yeah. So let's say some hi to some folks this morning, and we can start getting into some players. And rather than me monologuing, it would help me if you had some questions, or if there's some questions in the chat and that stuff. But Luke Wright came in and says, "Thanks for the great video." There's a ton more coming. I posted on my YouTube channel, I posted the Kenny Pickett highlights. They're highlights, but they're really most of his throws. So you can see most everything. There's probably 20 throws in there from yesterday. And a lot of it's on air. A lot of it's timing, just getting your stuff down. So you just watch them with a grain of salt, knowing that, hey, they're not showing everything here. This is practice. This isn't necessarily a pro day. EJ says, good morning, Scott. Pickett. Bryce, good morning. Clayton, good to see you. Good to see you. Dave in Brighton early. And James, that feels like a new name. Maybe it's not. I feel like I should recognize that. What is that, a 152? That Cessna 152? Might be a 172. The 152s were two-seaters and the 172s were fours. I flew 72s when I was in college way back when. House coffee this morning, Clayton. But I do have my Braves mug. I started pouring on my Broncos for breakfast. I'm like, wait a minute, this is Wednesday. Let's put it in my Atlanta mug for sure. Ethan coming in from across the pond. Good morning, gents. Broncos and Falcons country. And then let's start off topic here. And then we can move on. It says, what's everyone's thoughts on the new Washington Commanders name? I'll be honest with you. When I hear anything Washington, I try and find the most absurd reason to be offended because that's how people think. And I'm like, you know what? I don't like being commanded. I'm offended. So I'm offended by the name Commanders. I'm offended. So where's my check? I should be able to sue somebody. Should be able to. Honestly, I don't care. Being a soccer guy, I actually kind of like Washington football team.
Yeah. And it's a fine name. Washington's tainted for me because their ownership group is so terrible. So I don't wish good things upon them. Feel bad for their fans, but like Dan Snyder's just the absolute worst. And I know that's me throwing stones at glass houses, maybe with the stuff coming out about the Broncos, but like still, Dan Snyder has a really bad track record. And I like it. I'm here for the jokes. Let's be honest. You're here to, be offended. I'm here for the jokes. Mm-hmm. The Washington Commies. I mean, does it get better than that? Are you serious, guys? That's amazing. So
I was not even trying to hide it anymore.
No,
they're not even trying to pretend they're not, trying to take over and run everything out of Washington anymore. So
the Washington
that's a
Commies.
Different discussion. We won't get into that too much.
But thanks, James, for the question. I think it's fine. I think it's hilarious too that like it was some helicopter yesterday was the one who spoiled it, like zooming in on just incredible zoom, like going way out and zooming way in the facility and seeing the Commanders and like, oh, well, there it's spoiled. But yeah, no, the Washington Commies.
James says it is a new 172. Nice. Good,
awesome.
good. Those are great planes.
Yeah.
I never worried about like, don't you worry about those things? I'm like, no, you can actually fly those things backwards. There's a maneuver you do called minimum control airspeed, at least it was 25 years ago, where you drop your flaps down and basically go as slow as you can. And if you get up into a 30-knot wind at 5,000 feet, I looked down and I was actually going backwards. So it's like you can stall one of those things into a tree and you'd be all right as long as you don't lose a wing. But
depends on the tree.
No problem. Yeah, you lose an engine, no problem. I'm okay with it turns into a glider at that point. Anyway, let's start with Chris here. Chris, good morning. It says there are a number of players I'm interested. I'm particularly interested in Western Kentucky's quarterback, who's a last-minute replacement for Matt Corral. So he's talking about Bailey Zapp, and Chris, I would scratch him right off my board. Last year, there were a couple guys that looked like they didn't belong as far as throwers. Jamie Newman, Felipe Franks, almost right away said they should probably go undrafted. Now, someone may take a flyer on Bailey Zapp, but he just doesn't have the arm. He does not have. He's 6 feet tall. He's Kellen Moore light. Kellen Moore lit it up at Boise State, and is going to be a head coach in this league. I think Kellen actually had a little bit more arm than Bailey does, but Bailey threw for 6,000 yards. 70-something touchdowns or something absurd. I don't think anybody else is over 50, and he's at like 67 or something. So he knows the game. But I think coach is, Sean McVay is in his future, not Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, and I know that arm talent in itself, like the stronger it is, it can be somewhat overrated. But there is a point of a threshold that you must cross as far as arm talent to hit NFL windows consistently and hit outside hash mark throws against NFL athletes, et cetera, et cetera. Some guys can overcome it with amazing processing and touch, but I still think there's a point where you just don't have enough arm talent. Mac Jones last year showed that he did enough arm talent. He showed that in the SEC, but also he showed it in the Senior Bowl. I know he had a tough day with the wind going in his face, but then when the wind was at his back, he was fine. So limitations, but he can overcome it. I don't think Bailey Zappi has the ability to overcome it. And for the Broncos fans in here, it's kind of like, oh, why don't they give Brett Rippon a shot? If you had practice or saw Brett Rippon throw the ball around, you'd understand. He just does not have the RPMs behind the ball.
Yeah, we call it the enough factor. Yep. And he, are you big enough? Yeah, he's big enough. He's 6 feet tall, but he doesn't have enough arm, in my opinion. It's unfortunate. I wanted him to come down here and do well, but some of the guys there was a lot of erratic throws yesterday. First day of practice, timing out. This guy zigs when I thought you were going to zag. All kinds of things. But when he was missing, he was skipping the ball. He was throwing it into the ground, and it just wasn't getting there. So, maybe again, Chris, a 7th round pick, and you put him on. He's basically another coach. I think Kellen Moore went directly from the Cowboys practice squad to their coaching staff. Something along those lines, where it's like, okay, I'm not playing anymore. Okay, well, you're a coach now. I could see that happening, and I don't know nearly as much about Bailey as about Zapp. Just reading the tea leaves and seeing that this is a guy who obviously knows the game, and I've seen him go through progressions quickly. That he's got a football brain. So I think he's got an NFL future, just maybe not as a quarterback.
Yeah, well, that's awesome to hear. He's somebody who, if you're drafting him day 3, you're drafting him because of what he can do as a teammate for your quarterback room and for your team in general and for his mind. But, it's unfortunate. Sometimes you have multiple guys like that at the Senior Bowl because there's just not enough good quarterback play to go around. This year, maybe unfortunate for Zapp, but unfortunate for the rest of us. There are 5 good quarterbacks there, but good to see that the eye test held true with Zappy. A lot of good throws, a lot of tight window throws, but just like they're flutter balls, baby. You can't do that in the NFL.
Yeah, and I think the arms here are better than the arms that were here last year.
Yeah.
It was, I think, Ian Cook, Sam Ellinger, Felipe Franks, Jamie Newman, Mac Jones, and then there's one more I'm forgetting. I don't remember who the 6th one was, but there were 2 guys here immediately that I said those guys shouldn't get drafted. There should be 5 of these quarterbacks drafted in the first 3 rounds. Kellen Mond was the other one. Kellen Mond, I've never been a huge fan of him as a passer. I think he's a pretty good college quarterback with his ability to scramble and do all those things, but I wasn't all that high on him as a all-star game type of thrower. He won the MVP of the game because he could break down and run. Keith Robbins asked, are the Falcons getting a quarterback in this draft, or are they going to wait? Nick, what do you think? And then I'll follow up.
I think if Malik Willis goes on and has an incredible rest of the Senior Bowl and like aces the interviews and the chalkboard and everything like that, there's a chance he can go in the top 10 because people are going to see Josh Allen. They're going to see Justin Herbert. These guys played in weird situations in college. Justin Herbert playing in a stupid offense without playmakers on the perimeter. And obviously Josh Allen losing a lot of NFL talent from his junior to senior year, being like, okay, Malik Willis, that's kind of what it looked like as far as those guys with the tools, the frame, the arm talent, the athleticism. If you fall in love, and I'm talking fall in love with him, I could see a quarterback in the top 10 for the Broncos or the Falcons, 8 or 9. But that is a lot of things having to happen in perfect sequential order that I don't think is super duper likely. So the quarterback in the draft this year, day 2, for one of these guys at the Senior Bowl, not named Zap, let's throw in Matt Corral in there as well. End of round 1 to day 2. Hell yes. Sign me up. Calculated shot. I think your most likely outcome is you're going to get a Andy Dalton-esque level quarterback, which is not what you want, but for a day 2 pick and to have a rookie on cost controlled. I mean, Andy Dalton with those Bengals teams went to the playoffs multiple times and they had some deficiencies. Now, a lot of that was Dalton still, but like on his rookie contract, that was a good team. You could build a good team around that guy. Once he got paid that second contract. And that's how I see all these quarterbacks outside of Malik Willis right now. I think he's the one who could transcend that level, given the tools he has.
Yeah, and I'm going to be a little harsher about it, Keith. Keith, who are you on this side of me? Nick. I'm waiting for my I don't think this coffee's got the right juice in it, honestly. If the Falcons take a quarterback at 8, I'm going to be pretty unmerciful with them. I really am.
Desperation.
That there's not a quarterback that I want at 8. There's other things you can do. If you want a quarterback, can they get a quarterback in this draft? Yes, I think they can. They've got 2 second-round picks, a high third. If one of those picks ends up being a quarterback, I'm okay with that. I really am. And one of these 5, probably 2 or 3 of these 5 should be available when they pick in the first time in the second round, and maybe even one of them around at the 74 pick. I think that's their third round pick. 58 somewhere in there, 58 for their second round pick. One of these guys should be around then. Yeah, I'm okay then. But if they take him at 8, I think you're going to be in a lot of trouble because it's just you're not a good enough team to not have a plus quarterback, and then to use a spot where you could have gotten a plus player. There's really good players that are going to be available at 8. Now, I'm hoping Kenny Pickett wows the Carolina Panthers and they take him at 6 because that moves Darryl Stingley Jr. down, maybe Kyle Hamilton, maybe George Karlaftis, maybe David Ojabo, maybe Ike Ekwonu, maybe Cross. One of these guys, if you don't know all these names, I basically just went corner, safety, edge, tackle. Places where there are just gaping holes on the Falcons roster. I know there's needs everywhere. You need a quarterback. Don't get me wrong. But, when I say, I think I put up a preview just saying, hey, these are the guys that are going to be down there. The Falcons are going to be watching these guys. And people are like, LOL, haha, no way. I'm like, why not? They took 5 guys last year. I didn't say 8. I didn't say they had to take them at 8. I don't want them to take them at 8 either. So, but yeah, second day, I'd be real interested. Scott said, this is EJ coming in. Thanks, EJ. So which players impressed you on day 1 of the Senior Bowl that would be great fits for either the Falcons or Broncos? Now, there's a player there, and I'm going to show you a video here that I just popped up. And when I watched him live, now I want you to remember, when I'm watching these practices, I'm filming them. So I'm watching most of them through a faded 2.5-inch viewfinder. I go back and I learn most of my stuff. Now, the guys that pop, they still pop even when they're watching a practice. But I learned most of my stuff going back through the day and watching my video over and over and over again. I didn't get a chance to do the second practice until I got half of it this morning because they were 2 hours late, and it cut into my time of making sure I'm doing these shows and doing the content. Anyway, the point is, my first impression of defensive tackle Travis Jones at UConn was watching him real quickly in a 11-on-11 drill. And I was like, he's a little slow on his get off there. I'm not so sure about this guy. And then I went back and watched my video and watched this guy, which is the same guy. This is Travis Jones at defensive tackle, and watch one-on-ones. So what? Give this kid a look.
Yeah.
That's 330 pounds of man-child. The first guy that he manhandled was, I think, Andrew. What's his first name, Nick? Andrew Stuber?
Stuber? It's from Michigan.
Yeah, he's from Michigan. Stuber had a good day. He had a really good day, but he was no match one-on-one for Travis Jones. So, real quick, if you're thinking big defensive lineman and Jarvis Jones could be the guy that, gets a little bit too high, someone takes him at 10, maybe I can slide down and get a Christian Barmore type at 25 or, 25 to 30 or somewhere in there. I give Travis Jones a really hard look, and he can play. I don't think he's scheme dependent either. He's a defensive tackle or a nose guard at 330 pounds.
Yeah, I think he'd be best in an odd front. But still, with how much, sub-package teams are playing these days, he's good. And a lot of people, the run game is not as valuable as stopping the pass game, but you want to give your defense advantageous looks on the pass game. Like 3rd and 2 will kill you. Ask the Chargers this year. Ask the Broncos this year. You can't really get your pass rushers to pin their ears back unless you're doing the dirty work on 1st and 2nd down. That's one of the big reasons that David Ojabo's stock is all over the place. Top 10, borderline first rounder. How much value is he going to give you on 1st and 2nd down? That's worth to be said. But I really like Jones. I'm glad that you went back and double checked the tape. That's quality control in here. And you want to say, okay, well, let's see what's going on. Because heard some other people say that he looked good. And then you went back and checked and confirmed it. But there was there's some pretty good defensive tackle play down there in the Senior Bowl, which is great after last year.
I agree.
Last year was bad.
I think the interior defensive line is considerably ahead of where it was last year. I was like, okay, I'm watching the interior offensive line here, and I like them. But again, when you're going against just yourselves, you don't know, is that because one's a weakness or because one's a strength? And it was a little bit of both last year because the interior line, those guys, Creed Humphrey, you heard of him? They were really good last year. I want to say a special shout out this morning. You might recognize the name and that good-looking kid that he's got in his lap with a nice little bass. That's my dad. So everybody wish my dad a happy birthday on Groundhog Day. So happy birthday. Happy birthday, Dad. I'll give you a call in a little bit. I'm on my way to the stadium, but thanks for joining us on your birthday this morning.
That's awesome. Happy birthday. That's great. Great to see. Congrats on another trip around the sun on this rock we call Earth.
Jason says, any of the quarterbacks have anything close to a Matthew Stafford arm? No. No.
Hey. Yeah, I mean, the only one that would have a chance would be Malik Willis, but it's not close. Matt Stafford has an arm that probably only comes out once every 3 years-ish.
Maybe.
But none in this class. I don't think even there's a conversation to be had that none of these guys even have arm talent of Drew Lock in the coming out. Because I remember he really popped at the Senior Bowl as far as arm talent. Now, you want to have the processing and intelligence to go with the tools. And if you don't have both, you're going to be erratic like we've seen with Locke. But as far as having the arm talent of Matt Stafford, especially coming out, I think Stafford's arm has lost a little bit over the last couple seasons. He's so much smarter than he used to be as well. But it's not a Matt Stafford arm. If there was a Matt Stafford arm in this class, you're probably talking about 1 overall.
Yeah, Matthew Stafford's number 1 overall every year. I mean, he's, for the most part, unless there's another quarterback like him every 2 or 3 years. But Matthew Stafford, I use the all-time greats to compare to Matthew Stafford, which to me, my benchmark for arm talent were John Elway and Brett Favre. And that's where Matthew Stafford was. Malik Willis has the best arm in this class, but it's not on that level. His would have been, if you look back at last year, he would have been behind Trevor Lawrence, behind Trey Lance, behind Zach Wilson, behind Justin Fields, and ahead of Mac Jones. And I'm forgetting somebody in there, aren't I? Because I guess there were 4 quarterbacks.
5 quarterbacks last year.
So I'm forgetting somebody.
There
Maybe
was
I
Trevor
named
Lawrence
all of them.
1, Zach Wilson
Trey
2,
Lance,
Trey
Mac
Lance,
Jones, Justin
Justin
Fields. I got
Fields
them all.
5. Yep.
Yeah, I
And
got
then
them all.
Davis Mills, the other one.
Yeah. So of the 5, Malik Willis is the best of this bunch, and he would have been 5th last year, with Mac Jones being last of that group. So, which is okay. It's still a plus NFL arm, but those other guys that are coming in have average NFL arms at best. But if you've got an average NFL arm, okay, now what else can you do? What are the other things you can do? How else do Mac Jones has an average NFL arm at best. Doesn't mean he can't play. Joe Burrow doesn't have a huge plus arm. Doesn't mean he's in the Super Bowl. There's
I'm
definitely
really curious. I'm really curious to see what Mac Jones does as far as the rest of his career. Is he going to bump his head on the ceiling? Because with his limitations, it's the pilot or the plane argument. Talking about James's plane earlier. And once Mac Jones is, that maybe having to get a second contract, what does it look like? Can they put more on him? Curious to see how that team building goes around him. They need to get him some more weapons, but he lost his offensive coordinator now. It's be interesting. Jeremiah Chavez coming in, $5 super. Great pick of you and your girl there, Jeremiah. Christian Watson, wide receiver, and Khalil Shakir, wide receiver. How are they doing? I'll take Khalil Shakir first, just because I saw that I don't have the measurements exactly in front of me, but I think he had 29 to 30 inch arm length. And that is a big concern for wide receivers. I think there's only 3 wide receivers in the entire NFL last year that caught a pass with the arm length that Khalil Shakir has. So that's a big concern for me. You have to be an absolute blazer to make up for those kind of issues. I think Robbie Anderson is one of those guys who can do that. So that's a big red flag for me with Shakir. Christian Watson, I believe, is the North Dakota State wide receiver. You were talking about him yesterday, so I'll give you the floor on that one.
He looked good. He's comes in. It says 6'4". That's right. I'm reading that right. Yeah, 6'4". And he looks at. He's lean. 6'4", 211 pounds. Christian looked really good. I'm not sure who. Again, I just got one of the rosters this morning, so I've been fighting it a little bit. Nick's going to send me over the other copy because I got a. Doesn't matter, but they didn't have rosters readily available. So I'm writing down numbers of guys, and I have to go back through and match numbers to helmets, and I haven't had time to quite do that for everybody, but just yet, unless somebody really caught my eye. And Christian Watson was one of those guys that did. Size, hands, he covers a ton of ground. When there's guys out there that are fast but not necessarily quick, they're 40 times or 4.6, but you never see him get caught. He might be one of those guys who's running in the 4.6s, but he didn't get caught because he's such a long strider that once he gets opened up, he's outrunning everybody. So he's fast, but real strong hands. Ball just sticks to his hands. So I was very impressed with him. And appreciate the super, Jeremiah. I feel like that's the first time I've seen you. So welcome and thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. We appreciate you. Yeah, man, I'm so jealous that you're down there at the Senior Bowl enjoying yourself right now. It's a lot of fun. Hopefully the weather. Is it windy today?
It's wet. I went down for breakfast again. This room, these shades, the shades go into a pane. So they go this far into the wall. So there is no light that gets into this place. It's awesome. I think it was Mark that came, and Mark Lindemood said, I hate sleeping in hotel rooms. I'm like, I love sleeping in this hotel room, even with the jungle gym going on next to me, with the kid out there running around and screaming. He's usually asleep by 10:30 or so no big deal. But it is going to be wet today. It's going to be wet. I don't know how windy it's going to be, but it's definitely going to be wet all day.
Well, that is good to hear because somebody who's looking at the quarterbacks, you want to see how they handle the elements. So that'll be great. I just saw that, unfortunately, one of my favorite players at the Senior Bowl is going to be not participating. Cameron Thomas, San Diego State, has a hamstring issue. So he's not going to be playing, which is a big bummer because I thought he was a fringe first round player in this class. He was so productive at San Diego State for the Aztecs. So we'll see how it plays out. CC in the house. Morning, Nick and Scott. Love the pick of the dog there. I think that's the dog there on the left. Roderick Cook coming in. I'd take Scott in my Atlanta draft for sure.
You could do worse. You could do worse. I'm a safe pick. I'm safe. I'm early to bed, early to rise. You know what you're gonna get.
The real question is, do you have double jointed thumbs? Because otherwise, I can't have you. That's the big one.
I've got 9.25 inch hands.
You should have been a quarterback. Nice.
I should have been a quarterback, but I was a soccer player. I didn't know any better. Actually, I should have been a
Football.
baseball player.
Yeah.
Left-handed?
Money. Oh man, what are you doing? We wouldn't have
I
played the
don't
infield, but
know.
that's okay.
I don't
Um,
know.
so some more players. I want to just stick on the trenches here. Did you get a chance since last night to do some more trench work? Because I do have some other guys I wanted to ask you about.
A little bit, but not as much. It's still mostly the skill guys for me so far.
Okay.
Again, I don't. I will shoot the one-on-ones, and I'll watch all of that in the trenches today because they should be in pads. I don't
Mhm.
remember if they were in shells 2 days and then went to full pads on the last day, but they should be in pads today. I don't watch the full. They don't do full contact, so I don't watch the offense and defensive linemen as much.
Okay.
Travis coming in and saying good morning. Good morning, Travis.
Good morning, Travis. And some Broncos breaking news. Just this is your channel, Scott, but might as well share it. The Broncos are bringing in Clint Kubiak to be the quarterback coach and the pass game coordinator. So Broncos nepotism, cronyism ties are strong, but there has to be a Kubiak in Denver, right? And Clint, former offensive coordinator for the Vikings, obviously a little bit over his head last season there, but coming in and helping with the transition to the more Shanahan-based wide zone scheme and the West Coast passing offense off of it. Should be fun. Hopefully Clint doesn't come in here and say, hey, you got to take Kenny Pickett at 9 overall, because I would be upset, but it's okay. Cutthroat trader coming in. Is that cutthroat as in like cutthroat that is, I don't know, what's the word? Like rough, like, merciless cutthroat? Or is that cutthroat as in trout fishing? Because then you have me. Who's the best whiteout there? Scott, you said you did some work on the whiteouts. I'm curious to hear what you have to say.
Yes, the one who had who might not be the best one, but who had the best day was how do I say his name? Velus Jones, 5'11 and a half, 203 pounds. Velus Jones Jr. from Tennessee. He had the best day. Remains to be seen if he's going to be the best receiver, but I liked a lot of what I saw. Drop him in a slot, really strong hands, good route running, good top end speed. I was very impressed with him. So as far as the prospects go, you walk in at 6'6", the way what's his name, the way Romeo Dobbs, I can't pronounce his name either, from Nevada did. He was 6'2". I'm sorry.
I was going to say 6. When you were
6'2",
saying 6'6", I was like, I do not
I
remember
must
him
have seen.
being
I
that tall.
was reading it off. There's a Nevada kid tight end that was right ahead of him on my list, and I must have read. Cole Turner is 6'6".
Yes. Okay.
Romeo Dobbs isn't quite that big, so thank you for giving me. I got a chance to look at that. But Christian Watson again, someone to look at. Braylon Sanders looked really good. Out of Braylon Sanders out of Ole Miss, Christian Watson out of North Dakota State, and Velus Jones out of Tennessee. Some of the guys that got my attention.
The guy that I was curious about, I really liked him a lot from the tape that I saw. And again, I'm not there, so this is purely hearsay and asking people around and reading. So take that as you will. Flawed process in that one, I'll tell you. But South Alabama, so the hometown kid, Jalen Tolbert, did he catch your eye at all? Because I saw a lot of people talking about him as he was much faster than we thought. He's 6'3", but he was pulling away from defensive backs and making some plays down the field.
I haven't gone through all of my video on the second practice yet, and he was on the American team, 6'1", 195.
Yep.
And we'll see. But you were mentioning, which player were you mentioning with the shorter arms?
That is Shakir. Yep.
29. The next closest was Trey Turner out of Virginia Tech, who I did see have a nice play. And he's got arms almost 2 inches longer. That was that's the wingspan of just 70 inches is 4 inches, more than 4 inches less than anybody else.
It's an outlier, and that's scary.
When you can't get to the ball, you get some of these guys that they can tie their shoes without bending over. They're knocking the ball down. They're able to beat you to the ball. That's why do we like height? Why do we like size? Well, that's part of it. The reach usually comes with it. A guy that's 6'6" with long arms can get to that ball better.
Yeah, and we have a question from EJ saying any receivers that are Debo Samuel likes out there. So the guys who look like running backs as with their frames. Not at the Senior Bowl, but I think Traylon Burks could be used in from Arkansas, projected to be a top 15 pick at wide receiver this year, maybe even wide receiver 1 with Drake London and Jameson Williams getting injured. I think he's one that you could be creative with in a sense. Now, we said the same thing about, the really good Colorado wide receiver who's just been not very good in the NFL. Chenault. Laviska Shenault, big body, looks like a running back or an H-back, going to play wide receiver, get the ball to him. The good things can happen. it has not worked so far for Laviska Shenault. But I think that the way Treylon Burks looks against SEC competition versus Laviska versus Pac-12 competition makes a difference there. So
Yeah,
I like Treylon.
I think the closest of this bunch is probably Velus Jones Jr. At 5'11", 203 pounds is what he measured. That would be the closest for body type. Basically, you're looking for guys that have running back body types that are, if you're going to be 6'3", are you at least 220? Or if you're, are you built like a slot receiver? If you're in the 180s and probably not, then you're a slot guy. And there's ways to get you the ball that way too. So,
here's a fun free agent, or here's a fun one. Most like Debo Samuel at the Senior Bowl. Malik Willis?
I was thinking Sam Howell.
Oh yeah, Sam Howell too. Yeah,
I was thinking 6 foot, 220 pounds of Sam Howell.
Yeah, he's a thick boy, man. He's interesting. I like the sturdiness. I do not think that how he was implemented as a runner has any translation to the NFL. But the fact that he is stout, I think he can take a few hits. I think he can. We saw last week with Joe Burrow escaping from Chris Jones a few times, being a little bit bigger and breaking off an arm tackle, I think is big for a guy in the pocket. So we'll see. We got DWI guys saying Cordero Patterson signed as a free agent. If Mike McDaniel goes to Miami, I would hope that he would sign Cordell Patterson to go to Miami with him. Not a far drive there, or not a far get for Cordell Patterson. You want to Mike McDaniel already what he's done with Debo Samuel, just do the same thing with Cordell Patterson. But it'll be fun. I've always been a big Cordell Patterson fan. One of the best special teams returners in the history of the game. Really, I mean, put some respect on his name. So great player.
And Cordell Patterson was doing the Debo Samuel impersonation before Debo Samuel was. It was about 8 games into the season where they said, okay, we're going to use Debo Samuel the way Atlanta's using Cordell Patterson, and his catches at wide receiver. I think he had like 1,000 yards receiving in the first 10 games or something crazy, huge numbers. And then those fell off because they're giving him 10 carries out of the backfield and they started winning more games. So Cordell is, I'll be a fan for life of Cordell Patterson. Just he's one of those that plays the game with a big smile on his face and gives it everything he has. And those are the kind of people that you're interested in for sure. Clayton, going back and forth on YouTube and Facebook, says it's very different. Well, hopefully it works out okay either direction for you. So, but appreciate you being on both sides. And do you know, Keith asked about the new running back hire, Petrie. I don't know much about him, Nick. It happened when I was on my way driving down here. Now, what I do know is there is a Petrie here.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's what I thought.
There's a Jalen Petrie from Baylor is here. He's a 5'10" and a half, 196 pound safety, and that's not a real common name. So I wonder if there's any relationship there. But Keith, I don't know much about him yet. I haven't been able to do my any research on him while I've been here watching practices and driving to practice and that type of stuff. So apologies. We'll find out.
Yeah, and Clayton's question about switching back and forth on YouTube, what linebackers or cornerbacks are sticking out to you? Petrie is one who I've heard had solid first day of practice. He is a kind of that new age position where he's a safety, but he plays on the second level over the slot. He's essentially a tight end matchup kind of player. Think of the antithesis of a tight end. That's what Jalen Petrie is going to be. Probably not as much deep safety work as he is in the second level. But I heard he did well.
And we're going to have to get out of here in just a moment because practice is scheduled to start in 55 minutes. So I will, if you have any last questions or anything, make sure you get them in. Let me run through a couple names here, of guys that I really liked. Matt Waletzko out of North Dakota, offensive tackle. Rashad White, a running back, Arizona State. I mentioned Velus Jones. And Trey McBride, tight end out of Colorado State, I thought looked really good. I thought a lot of the tight ends look good. They're big and smooth, and they're just big safety blankets. When you're a quarterback and you're out there for the first day and you're not sure, they're not running quite as fast as wide receivers, and they're this gigantic target. They just feel good throwing to them. It's like having a 6'6" first baseman over there. Like, man, just get it close. So I thought they looked. The Trey McBride I thought probably had the best day of the tight ends as well. John Ridgeway, Arkansas, flashed a couple times for me. I know I'm always paying special attention to that interior defensive line. And I think that's a spot the Broncos and Falcons should both definitely be looking to address. Nose guard / defensive tackle, 310 plus. And John Ridgeway came in at let's see, I think he came in 320 range. John Ridgeway, 6'4.5", 327. So him and Travis Jones were within who had the bigger biscuit in the morning of each other at 326 and 327. Travis Jones showed a little bit more for me in one-on-ones early, but in the 11-on-11s, I saw John Ridgeway wreaking havoc on the interior line, that was his job, just clearing space for the linebackers and stuff. So thought he looked really well. Gary Lee's Palmer coming in says, good morning, and finally finished. Well, welcome. Appreciate you being here. We're just about to get out of here because I'm going to head over to South Alabama to their stadium. And Luke says you're going to pop in tonight on Mile High Huddle. Probably. Yep, I'll be there. So again, hopefully they'll stick to schedule because I was kind of beat yesterday. You sit out in the stadium for 2.5 hours before they even start practicing, and then you're out there for another 5. I'm like, all right, I'm kind of tired. Let's get this going. So should be on there tonight for sure.
Yeah, and I do have a few guys I want to ask you about real quick, just before we get on out of here. Some guys that I've heard some stuff on and some guys that I liked coming out. I'm going to stick on the defensive front 7, if that's okay with you. Did you notice at all Logan Hall from Houston? He had a lot of hype coming in, maybe a first-round pick. Sounds like he was just okay day one.
I haven't checked numbers on numbers versus jerseys for the most part. On defense guys yet. Just the DL.
Just the DL? He is
just
DL.
The DL. Then I don't remember him. But
okay,
let's see. Who did he play for?
Houston.
So he would have probably been on the American squad. I haven't rewatched my American.
He's on the national team. He's on the national team.
Then he didn't show for me.
Okay. Anybody on the national team? Or is it mostly American for you?
Let me see. Let me go through the roster here. I had liked.
Because I was very curious also about Boye Mafe from Minnesota. He is an athletic freak. He is 6'4", 265, 270 with length, and he impresses me a lot. And it really hurts me to say that being an Iowa Hawkeye fan because Minnesota's little brother number 2. But I thought he was impressive at Minnesota.
Isaiah Thomas caught my eye coming off the edge a little bit from Oklahoma. How do you say Majai Sanders?
Yep.
Did some things. A little undersized when he was going up against the tackles, but okay.
Did he show any flexibility in the ability to turn the corner and change direction? Because I always thought
what they were doing yesterday, this play that I showed you. This is what they did yesterday. They weren't doing pass rush.
Okay, I was just curious.
This was, and unfortunately, Sanders drew Falele in the first one of these, which was basically seal the edge. Can you hold your ground? That was the drill they did. It wasn't try and get by the guy. Those will happen today. Okay. That's when I start getting real interested in the defensive lineman on day 2.
And I'm just going to give you a homework assignment here. One guy that has caught my eye throughout the process, and I don't think he's a first-round pick, but I think he is an ideal scheme fit for the Broncos leaning to the outside zone stretch kind of looks. Max Mitchell from Louisiana, Raging Cajuns. He is a little bit light, but he has light feet. And he moves pretty well. He's going to probably have to continue to add to his frame, but I think he has enough size. He has enough movement. He looks like a very good right tackle prospect, the guy that you take day 2 and should be starting after a year in the league, in my opinion.
Well, I'll tell you, there's 3 guys. We mentioned the DL look better. I'm looking at the names here, and Travis Jones, we just showed him. Yep. The UCLA guy was Otito Ogbongbonnia. I know this is awful.
Ogbonnia.
I apologize, y'all.
I think it's Ogbonnia.
Ogbonnia. He was good. John Ridgeway, we mentioned him. And one I didn't mention, Perion Winfrey from Oklahoma had a good day as well. And then also Devontae Wyatt. So those were 5 guys across 2 different teams on the interior line that all got my eye. And one last question. We're going to bring in our closer here to get us out of here. Ethan's asking us best fit for the Falcons at 8, and let us know who the most impressive player you've seen. Most impressive player. I'm not there yet. For different reasons. Maybe Falele. 6'8", 380 pounds, and can move. That's pretty impressive. He wasn't necessarily the most dominant of the bunch out there, but that kind of size will get your attention pretty quick. And then I mentioned some of my high risers, and then I love the fact that there's multiple big men in here that we're able to watch. I just ripped off about 5 or 6 names of those guys that should be good fits for the line deprived Atlanta Falcons. And I know the Broncos could use an upgrade over Mike Purcell as well.
Yeah.
But the best fit for the Falcons at 8 is if you can get a 10 sack guy. If you can get a guy that you can pencil in 10 sacks for, I know that's not easy, but if it's Karlaftis, if it's Ojabo, but if you can get a guy that can give you double-digit sacks off the edge, that's who you need. I'm okay going offensive tackle as well, because Caleb McGarry is in his 4th year, and he's not the guy. I think he's going to be 26 or 27 this year. I'm done with him. He can be a 3rd tackle, a rotational guy, and then maybe a corner to pair up with AJ Terrell, and it lets you do more things with pressure. Now I can bring an extra guy maybe and help out my anemic pass rush if I have 2 of those guys in the backfield. So in that case, is it going to be Derek Stingley? Is it going to be Sauce Gardner from Cincinnati? Who am I forgetting? Andrew Booth, Clemson.
Mm-hmm. Trent McDuffie is the name to keep an eye on as well. Probably not in the top 10, but
if I could get, I think I mentioned last year, if you had a true number 1 edge last year, he would have gone at 4. The Falcons took best player available with Kyle Pitts, but I think there's going to be edge tackle corners available at 8 this year, and that's the direction they should go. If they go wide receiver or quarterback, it will be unmerciful. I'm good in Irish, and I can hold a mean grudge. You guys still hear me complaining about the Julio Jones trade, and that was a really good player. And why all the reasons that was wrong? That was 11 years ago. You have any idea what it's going to be like if they take a wide receiver again at number 8? Look out.
Yep, absolutely. Well, Scott, I'm going to let you get going here because I know you have some work to do. I'm going to work on sending you this list when I downloaded the Excel file. I guess I'll tell you afterwards what happened.
I'll check it on my phone because my Excel is old on my computer, so it might open up better that way.
Okay. All right. Well, sounds good. I'll let you close it out.
All right, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, appreciate you being here. And if you're watching after the fact, give us a like, share, subscribe, etc., and leave us a comment. I'm always in the comments and answering questions, and appreciate the feedback and the interaction. And we will have much more. I feel like just scratching the surface after one day at Senior Bowl, the things we're looking forward to. For what I'm looking forward to today, I'll dig into the trenches. They go full pads. They really start getting more physical and doing the one-on-ones. So this evening, and we'll do more on this channel, maybe even Friday, maybe even tonight. I'll let you know. So subscribe, make sure you don't miss anything. And we'll catch up again. I feel like I'm just scratching my surface on getting to know the 110 players here and what they're capable of doing. But it will get better. I promise you. I'll be a Senior Bowl expert within the next 48 hours. On that note, Nick, any last words?
Nope. Have fun down there. Stay safe, and we'll be talking again soon. It sounds like the Broncos, they officially brought in Clint Kubiak to be the quarterback coach and the pass game coordinator. Sounds like they're really close to getting a deal done with the Packers tight end coach, who is Justin Outen, to be the offensive coordinator as well, according to Ian Rappaport. And it should be wrapped up soon, according to Tom Pelissero. So moves are happening.
It's a very inexperienced staff. So
yeah, I think they'll bring in Doug Marrone to be the offensive line coach. Maybe the run game coordinator, maybe the assistant head coach. So then you have a guy who's been a head coach at 3 different levels, or 3 different spots.
Doug's a good dude. He's a wonderful person. So bringing in some folks that are going to be pretty easy to root for into Denver. And for the Atlanta Falcons, hopefully they're going to get some guys that we're going to be pretty excited to see. I think you should be able to get 3 immediate starters with the first 3 picks in the draft. You got 2 second rounders and a first rounder. You should get 3 starters. It's a low bar, I know, but the good news is get better. That's all I ask. Just get better. Just improve. On that note, we will say see you later, and we'll see you next time. And for Broncos or anybody else that wants to come in and talk some Senior Bowl, we'll be on Mile High Huddle on YouTube tonight at 8 o'clock Eastern. And until then, we'll see you next time.